Hi, I'm Stephen Simkin. I'm a resident of the village of Mamaroneck, and I'm honored to be able to facilitate a conversation this evening with George Mgrditchian, who is running for the office of mayor of the village of Mamaroneck, and DeRose, who is running for the office of village trustee. So I think we will launch right into the conversation because we don't have a lot of time. George, why don't you first tell us a little about your background and why you're running for office?
Well, Steve, thank you. Thank you for hosting this, and thank LMC-TV as well. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am first and how I've gotten to this point. I'm married with 2 children, twin boys, George and Stephen. My wife, Joanne, of 34 years. I own my own business, construction company, mostly heavy highway. Typically, I do municipal work. I also have several other businesses that I own in addition to that, and I bring an extensive background of business knowledge to this municipality. As far as my qualifications, well, currently I'm the president of the Oriental Point Association, as you know, Steve, and you serve with me, and I have been for the last 3 years. And prior to that, I was the treasurer. I am also a member of the Historical Society and the secretary to the Zoning Board for 10 years. I'm also the village marshal, which is also known to some people as a peace officer, and I have been as well for 11 years. I've decided to run, and Marie and I have decided to run for a couple of reasons. One in particular is that we have been disgusted and tired of watching what's been happening at board meetings. We don't like the controversial conversations that have occurred over the last several years between board members as well as village residents. We think it's embarrassing and upsetting, and I've often said that this friendly village is unfriendly, and until we can correct that, we were not going to be friendly any longer. We won't be friendly. So with that, I think that Marie and I can bring together the board, our political views. We've been walking this entire community. We have been meeting residents door to door. If nothing else, Marie and I have certainly enjoyed meeting these residents, which we would have never had the opportunity to do. And they've enjoyed seeing us as well, because there haven't been many candidates who have walked the entire village as we are doing currently. With meeting a lot of these residents, they too share the same concerns as we do, and we're pleased that at least our thoughts are the same as theirs, and we have a vision for the future of this village. And we hope that the residents will feel the same as they've conveyed to us during our walk.
Marie, maybe you'll tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be here with you and George tonight, and thank you to LMC-TV. My name is Maria DeRose. I'm a lifelong resident of the village of Mamaroneck. I have 4 almost adult children, ages 24, 22, 20, and 18. As I said, I was born and raised here. I am currently the operations manager for Lorenz International LLC, and prior to that, I was the administrative assistant to the principal of Resurrection Grammar School in Rye. And through my managerial work that I do now, I work with benefits, payroll, expense reports. I manage every employee in North America, all over North America. So I have that background where I can wear multiple hats, deal with different types of people, and get the job done. And I'm running, like George said, we're running, because we have been told by many, many people that things just aren't the way that they like. They feel that the residents aren't being listened to, their voices aren't being heard. We want to correct that. We're very good at listening to the residents, hearing their concerns, and bringing new ideas to them, and hopefully getting what's best for the entire village.
George, as a local contractor, you've had a lot of success in reining in costs and managing costs. How do you think that skill set would be able to help you as mayor of the village control some of the costs that have been incurred in connection with some of the public works projects that we've heard have run over budget and over time in getting finished.
Well, Steve, you know, with my extensive background in municipal contracts, I've been always on time. I've always been thorough in reviewing contracts in advance, as well as drawings, construction drawings and documents, finding the flaws in advance, submitting questions to wait for answers that would certainly be important into putting the project, you know, forward. I think that with my talent working with other municipal employees, just my eyesight on it alone, I think, could bring great effects or have great effects for this village. Cost overruns, I'm not a big fan of. I don't believe there's any need for it. A lot of issues can be worked out well in advance. There are plenty of people who look for those items, and they don't report the flaws in advance and wait for the extras to appear. It's happened many times in this village with many contracts that this village has had with other contractors. I think that it's important that we take a look at it as well, something that I'll be able to put my eyes on a regular basis. Plus, I'm local. Being the owner of my own company, I'll have plenty of free time to be able to work with the village employees as well as the staff.
And Marie, I know that you've been very involved in the parking issues facing the village, and you are a student of studying things to a very significant degree. Maybe you could tell us kind of what the status is of the parking, why it's such a big issue, and what you think some of the solutions might be.
Sure, Steve, thank you. I was chairwoman of the parking committee, the village committee, for 2 years. During that time, we had a 12-member committee that worked very closely together, 12 different residents from different backgrounds throughout the village. And it was a great learning experience for me because it, you know, just to see everybody come together for a common good and a common cause, putting all personal and political differences aside and working for what was best for the village. There was a study done, and that study showed that there is sufficient parking in and around the business district. What there is a lack of is turnover on Mamaroneck Avenue proper, and everyone who knows that, anybody who's been in this village for more than 20 seconds could tell you that, and it, you know, makes sense. Everybody wants to just pull in and park in front of the store that they want to go to. But knowing that, we began to look for alternative methods. The Board of Trustees, the majority, had purchased multi-space parking meters. They were very costly to the village. This was done almost as a knee-jerk reaction to that report that was submitted, because the report, that was the recommendation of the report. It wasn't put up to the residents. It wasn't put out for public opinion. They spent a great deal of money only to find out that these machines were not user-friendly and probably not the best solution to the problem.
Well, what is a multi-space meter for people who don't know?
A multi-space meter is one central pay station that will allow you to pay for multiple parking spaces at once. So rather than having one meter at each and every space where you would just pull in, get out of your car, put your coins in and park, you would have to walk to a central location, put in your parking space number or your license plate number, and pay for your parking that way. So it's one machine that, say, does the job of 15 or 20 single-space machines.
So people with young children, with packages, handicapped people would have a difficult time
Great
managing
inconvenience for
that
them.
system.
In good weather, it would be an inconvenience. In bad weather, it would just be intolerable to have to do that. So what we found on the parking committee was that the majority of residents, the business owners, everyone preferred the single-space meter. We were stuck with these multi-space meters that were already purchased. So as a compromise, we felt it best to utilize the already purchased multi-space meters in the parking lots in and around Mamaroneck Avenue. That would be the parking lot behind CVS, the Hunter Cheer parking lot across the street from the police station, and the small parking lot behind the Payless, what was Payless. Common sense would dictate that if you parked in one of those lots, you would be walking anyway, so it wouldn't be that much more of an inconvenience to use them. the parking committee also recommended single-space meters for Mamaroneck Avenue, and in our research, we found that there are single-space meters that perform like multi-space meters, in so much as that when you set a prescribed parking time, if you indicate Mamaroneck Avenue as 90-minute parking, at 90 minutes that single-space meter will lock, and you will not be able to add more time to that meter until it comes with a sensor. So you would have to physically move your car out of the parking space so the sensor resets, thereby promoting turnover, thereby freeing up spaces on Mamaroneck Avenue. And we thought that was a really good compromise to the situation. It would help promote turnover, plus give everyone the convenience of parking right where they wanted to be.
George, you've been a resident of Orienta for a very long time, and as you've mentioned, you've been president of the Orienta Point Association. Could you tell us a little bit about what you've accomplished there in the last few years and how you've managed to improve the lives and how to promote the community spirit in Orienta?
Well, Steve, as you know, I'm a resident for 34 years in Orienta, and it's really my first home away from home, as I call it. And I call my home the gateway into Orienta because it is the first home coming in there. And it's interesting because I actually never thought I would be on that board. The fact that I was a quiet resident for quite some time. I went to a board meeting one night. I was asked if I would be interested in joining the association. I did. I became treasurer for a very short period of time and then became the president. What I've done over the last 3 years is, for one, every resident now gets the Mamaroneck Review through a spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet that I created with untold amounts of hours of work with every resident's name on it. I was able to submit that with the board's approval to the newspaper to allow the residents to start receiving a local newspaper. As you know, we didn't have a local newspaper, and it was something that would come and go on and off. This now gave the residents that ability to be able to see what's going on locally, within the community. In addition to that, I've helped facilitate and bring back the holiday event that we have every year in December, plus our picnic, along with other board members. And we've done a great job or successful job at bringing that together, and every year it grows, or has been growing in the last couple of years. And we expect it to get even bigger. With electronics now, as emails and so on, we've been gathering quite a few emails. We have a very extensive list amongst the community, and we've been doing a lot of communicating through emails. Currently, I've taken a leave of absence, of course, because I'm running for office, but I continue to monitor projects that I've looked at. For example, the pump out station that is being put in currently on the corner of Orienta Avenue. That's been moving along quite well. They are still underground. They're still doing the underground work. They haven't finished any of the plumbing or electrical yet, but this pump station was very vital to the community. It's vital in the sense that this is the future of how we get our sewer out of Orienta. It all flows in through there, and then from there it leaves. A couple of other things that we've done and we've just started talking about is security for the community. We've recently talked about at our last board meeting plate readers. Because Orienta is a very closed community with over 700 homes on the homeowners list, there are really only two ways to come in and out of Orienta, technically, and that's through Old Post Road and Orienta Avenue. By putting a plate reader or two on, it would be monitored either through the police department, because they already have a system that's up and running, and it would only be used if there were an issue within the community, which I think the board was in agreement on, but not ready to act just yet. We were thinking about it, at least I talked about possibly getting grant money as well that could help, facilitate the project. We've also established community groups, or I should say organization groups, such as Infrastructure Group, which you sit on. We also have an event committee and a few others that are there. We have a land use committee that everybody shares a little piece of. I've also been able to create what we call our brochure to the community. It was something that I developed, that I brought to the board's attention. They were all in agreement. We all worked very hard on it. And we all decided that as a 14 board member that we would all go door to door to distribute this brochure to get the attention of the community as the community started turning over. So these are just some of the things that I've been able to do with the board. We've also been monitoring the Hampshire project, which has been ongoing for quite some time. And through the efforts of the group called MCEC, the Orient Point Association has been able to work with them and basically allow them to do the heavy lifting while we stand and support them in any way that we can as well. Again, the board and the community at large is not really against development. We'd like planned development. We'd like something that's in harmony with the community. We think that's whatever is being built there should be built in accordance to the current zoning and its ordinance.
George, we hear over and over again that, just to shift topics for a second, that taxes, real estate taxes, are very high in our community. Do you think there are any ways that you as mayor, Maria, you as trustee, could help manage that process and maybe reduce taxes? I've heard people talk about shared facilities with the various local municipalities where there are police departments, fire departments in Mamaroneck, Larchmont, the town of Mamaroneck. Are there ways that you as mayor or you as trustee could help facilitate the reduction of those duplicative services?
Well, shared service, you want to
Go
chime in
ahead.
first?
No, go ahead, I'll let you go.
So, shared services, I believe, work, but to a certain extent. I think every municipality should stand on its own. What I think the village has is an overload of, I want to say staff. I believe there are layers and layers, or multiple layers of management in this village that at some point needs to be looked at in a different fashion. We have different groups of departments that have layers of management levels that are stacked on top of one another. I think that we could possibly shrink that and also look at our spending costs and how we're going to spend money in this village. The village passes a budget, passes the bills every 2 weeks, and they could range anywhere from $500,000 to 1.5. Typically, the board doesn't review. They rely on their staff, the manager, to review the bills before it's passed. And there have been some valid questions that have been asked over the last several months that I've seen that certainly need to be addressed, that there are questions that are still unanswered. We as spectators have been sitting and watching. We haven't had much input at this point, but we are monitoring the situation.
Maria, you have 4 children, I think you
Yes.
said. We hear that there's a drug epidemic among our children in the local schools
Yes.
that even go beyond the school years. What do you think are some of the solutions, and how would you go about attacking the problem?
Well, on a local level, our best defense is education, which goes back to services. Our police department is phenomenal. We have a DARE program. So many of our neighboring communities have cut those programs in order to save money. I feel that is one program that we need now more than ever, and I think we need to concentrate on that, get the message out to our kids, start educating them younger and younger, start educating the parents. And I don't think that we can arrest this problem away. Addiction in any form is a disease, and until government higher than the local level starts to put focus on how to cure addiction, this epidemic is only going to get worse. Our best defense at this point is to just, embrace the learning process and teach our kids.
Having groups and discussions, Steve, as Maria said,
It's key.
for these kinds of issues and concerns is sometimes not enough. Maria and I would bring our policy door to door if necessary. We're walking the village now. What would make it any different? If we could communicate directly with the homeowners, with the parents, to educate them on what we would propose and what we would plan to do, I think we could get better results ultimately. And I would have no problem, speaking directly with parents. I think our schools also have to be addressed and brought up to speed. Allow some of our people, like the police department, to be able to go into the schools on occasion to do spot checks and so on. If you don't start somewhere, if you don't start at the low end, you're never going to get to the top. You can never find the larger people that are out there without getting to the lower people first. So again, it's an addiction, it's an issue. I feel sorry for a lot of these people who unfortunately have come about with some of these addictions, and I think we could help them. I really do.
George, you and Maria, I know, have talked a little bit about the fact that the current Board of Trustees are all Democratic, and that you think it's a benefit to have members of different parties on the Board of Trustees. Could you speak a little bit about why you think that's beneficial?
Sure. The majority of the board right now is Democrat, and I feel like on a local level, party politics really shouldn't have anything to do with our village. You need to be on a party, obviously, to be endorsed, to run, to be elected, but the board should be made up of people with open minds who really just care about the benefit of the entire village. We're a very diverse village. We have many different areas of our village that have different needs, but at the end of the day, we all need to come together to find a common solution, and I think that just having one point of view in any situation isn't good. It's good to have different points of view, to have an open dialogue, to take everyone's ideas, find the best ideas from everyone, merge those ideas together, and come up with a solution that's best for everyone.
So, and Maria's correct. We've been going, as I've said a few times already, that as we've been going door to door, resident to resident, we're getting the same reaction. People are telling us they're not interested in party politics. They know that politics does not belong in a small community like ours. What happens nationally certainly has no effect, to our village, and that it should be strictly. We've been conveying the message that it should be strictly about the village and the residents, community and residents. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. And Maria and I are just that. We want to be about the community and residents. We're not doing this because we have some political aspirations long term. We're doing this because this is our community. We've lived here for quite some time, 50 years, 34 years. Combined, we'll make another turn. But with that, the residents have agreed with us that there is no room for politics in a small community like this, and we want to make sure that we can be bipartisan with the current board. We think we can. We think they would be very receptive. We're not overspoken. We're not hardcore. We are citizens like everyone else. We work for the residents. We would work for the residents, and that's who we are.
I think one of the things that people have been critical about is that the board meetings have not really been that hospitable to the community, and people that have appeared there have not been treated with great civility. How would you try to address that, to encourage more residents to participate in the process, come out and speak their minds, so that the board members have a better opportunity to hear from all of the citizens in the community?
I think it's horrible when a resident or a visitor or anyone gets up at that podium and is ignored or is shut down or is dismissed. I think that's just terrible. We are only individuals. As many people as I know in this community, and as much as I'm all over the place, I don't know what is going on at any given point during the day in a specific area, and it's up to the residents to come and to tell us and to inform us. And they deserve the respect and courtesy to be listened to. They deserve the courtesy to have their issue taken seriously, to have it looked into. And, you know, when you dismiss someone, you take away their dignity, and that's not what a board of trustees is supposed to do. It's supposed to be receptive to its residents. It's supposed to work for the residents of this community to ensure that everyone gets treated equally and that every area of this village gets treated the same and that all issues are addressed. And that's what I would do.
George, you talked about promoting transparency in government. What do you mean by that, and why is the current board or administration not as transparent as you'd like it to be?
Well, first of all, Steve, we'd have to reduce some of those executive sessions that the village board goes into quite frequently, and some of them last an hour, 45 minutes before a board meeting, and people are just waiting, you know, to get to the board meeting, and yet there's an executive session going on, and it's lasting for quite some time. I think that it's essential when you know, when they adjourn for an executive session, that the village policy should be only for the bare minimum executive session topics or discussions, and then after that, come out of it, and the rest should be transparent and open to the public on basically what's going on. There have been recently some executive sessions that the board has gone into, which I don't agree with. I'm not going to get into the discussion of the topic, but again, listening to the residents I think is important. You know, my tenure on the zoning board for 10 years, I listened to a lot of residents. I listened to residents yelling and screaming from the audience. We had meetings that lasted till 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. They were out of control, but we stayed calm. We sat, we listened. Every resident had the right to speak, whether there were 3 residents or 40 residents, and there were many cases where there were quite a few. We listened to them all. It's only fair. They are the taxpayer. They have a right to be heard. Whether the board takes it under advisement or not is another issue, but I think it's important that the board listen to the residents.
George, we hear sometimes about trying to make the community eco-friendly. What ideas do you and Maria have as to how to make Mamaroneck a little more eco-friendly?
Well, I'll do part of it. I'll let Maria take the other half of it. You know, the village has started buying electric cars, and I think they have a few of them now, and I think they'll continue to buy them for, you know, some of the employees, the parking commission, you know, the traffic and parking commission, and some of our employees. And I think there are other options that this village, you know, can do, and you can
Right.
speak to.
Oh, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. I know homeowners have been putting up solar panels at their house. I believe there's grant money for that. I know the village is encouraging that for the homeowners to go green. What I
I don't
haven't
want to cut
seen-
you off, but I think we're unfortunately out
Oh.
of time. We've touched on just a few of the many, many topics and subjects that you and George have been talking about in your walking around the community. I think this has been a great beginning for people to hear what the both of you stand for. In the last few seconds, maybe you could tell the community how best to find you and to reach out to you.
Well,
And I think we're then done.
Maria and I have, of course, our palm card like everyone else. It's got our website on it. It's georgeformayor.org. I have my own email address on there as well, and so does Maria. And it's George at georgeformayor.org and Maria at georgeformayor.org. You could reach us anytime for any questions.
I think we're done, so I want to thank you all. I'm very sorry to cut this short because this has
No.
been a fascinating conversation, and I look forward to seeing you walking the community, and very good luck in the election. Thank you,
Thank you,
very
Steve.
George, and
Thank
thank you,
you.
Maria, for
Thank
showing
you.
your time
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you.